Just was somebody that I didn't even recognise anymore.
The prosecution team didn't meet with Jane until just a week or so before the trial.
It was all very rushed. They always stressed to expect disappointment because they very often see it in rape cases where violence was not part of the act. But they also, on the other hand, were telling me, this is the strongest case, you know, your evidence points towards winning it.
Jane's attacker denied raping her.
It wasn't until he was actually on the stand that we found out what his defence was, and that was basically that he couldn't remember, he had no recollection.
He was saying that he couldn't remember?
Yeah. So myself and my family were sitting in court looking at each other going,
it just doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. You know, people have to see through this. You know, how can a jury sit and listen to, I don't remember? And so what if you don't remember? It was never consensual, there was never consent there.
The accused was then asked if he could explain the forensic evidence taken from Jane.
He said he accepted that something must have happened, but he has no recollection of what, and that he can assume that it was consensual sex.
Jane was surprised to see how some members of the jury acted.
To be honest, a lot of them looked like they didn't want to be there and they were bored. When the jury were sent out to discuss their verdict and come back with the result, I think a lot of the lawyers expected them to come back quite quickly. His own defence barrister approached my prosecution barrister, and his words were, do these people not know how to spell guilty? Because he believed that he was not walking free.
On the second day, without a unanimous verdict, the judge asked the jury to reach a majority decision instead.
And what was the majority decision?
Not guilty.
I can't believe
So
it.
10 people on that jury said he was not guilty. Numb doesn't even describe it. I can't even put into words how I felt when they read that verdict out. There was one particular girl in the jury who instantly burst into tears and actually turned to me and my family and mouthed the word sorry.
Do you have any inclination as to why the jury said not guilty?
The judge tells them that they have to be 100% certain of the verdict, which in my eyes is just, it's bizarre, it's not right. I mean, nobody, it's human nature to have doubt and to have your own opinions.
Despite the verdict, Jane is still glad she reported the attack.
I felt that I had done the right thing, and I didn't let him away with it. I mean, I could have just went home that night and said nothing. I didn't let him ruin me, and I don't know how, but I know I'm here. I survived it, you know.
The senior prosecutor from the Crown Prosecution Service I met is concerned about the decisions that some juries are reaching in rape trials.
What we are finding is that the largest single reason for cases not succeeding is jury acquittals. We know that the majority of cases that we're prosecuting now, it's young girls, there are drink or drugs involved, they know the offender, they've either been in a relationship with him or they know him. So it makes you wonder if that sort of case has an impact on the jury, and the jury perhaps have misconceptions around some of the myths and stereotypes that they don't realise they're bringing into the jury room.
So even if a victim of rape gets past all the hurdles in our justice system to have their day in court, they still come up against the prejudices we hold about rape in society. We seem to focus more on how the victim might have been responsible instead of blaming rapists.
Why is it that so many people are raped, but so many perpetrators are not brought to justice?
Because, on the whole, we don't believe women. We don't believe that this is happening. But the reality is, women are being raped on a staggering scale. But our heads are stuck in the sand, and the criminal justice system has got its fingers in its ears. It's not listening to women, it's not dealing with the reality. It's seen as this natural hazard that women have to be careful of. For example, when they're coming home late at night, when they've been to the pub, they just need to, you know, take the necessary precautions, and if they're responsible, then it'll all be okay. As if it's like the weather. But we're talking about violent acts done for a purpose. You know, people decide to rape. They make a choice and they have an intent.
Rape is not an inevitable force of nature. We can improve our systems for dealing with it, but how do we stop it happening in the first place? Being a victim of rape changes a life forever, but it doesn't have to mean it's ruined. Today, I'm meeting a young survivor who demonstrates that it's possible to move on and even become stronger. I've come to Scotland to visit a charity for young survivors of sexual assault.
Hi, Nicole. Hi, I'm Pip. Nice to meet you.
Nicole Campbell set up Savvy with her mum 3 years ago.
I decided to launch Savvy because when I was 14 I was actually raped by my friend's dad, and we found no help at all through the court process, especially whilst I was most vulnerable and I really did need some support. There was nothing there for me or my family.
Nicole was raped when she was staying over at her friend's house. His dad gave her alcohol and insisted that she stay the night.
And basically just went to sleep, and the next thing I know it was like some pressure on me, and I felt a bit sore and uncomfortable, and I just kind of opened my eyes and his dad was like there. He was like doing it, like raping me whilst I was sleeping. And I was still a virgin at the time as well, so that's like pretty much how I left that.
Nicole was afraid that no one would believe her, but her friends convinced her to tell her parents. With their support, she reported the rape to the police. But the attack had a terrible effect on her.
I was using negative coping strategies to kind of deal with things because I didn't know the proper way to deal with things. I actually started getting bullied in school as well because people were saying that I was lying and that I wanted to sleep with them and that I was a slut and all sorts of things were coming with it.
That's horrible.
Then I started like cutting myself, actually carved dirty into the top of my leg because that's how I felt. I'd actually done that into my leg.
Nicole testified against her attacker in court, and he was convicted for her rape.
I wanted to make sure I couldn't do it to anyone else. That's why I wanted them put behind bars. But really, the worst trauma probably starts after because you have no way of dealing with things. The only thing I could turn to block out my feelings was alcohol and stuff like that, just anything that was going to take me away from feeling the way I did at that time. I just really hated myself. I just really didn't care about myself at all. It wouldn't have made a difference to me if I was alive or not at that time.
So what was the turning point for you?
Basically, I woke up